This is Wealthy AF, your ultimate guide to understand what it truly means to be wealthy AF. And today we have a returning guest, Melissa Rymer. And Melissa is a narcissist abuse survivor who spent 7 terrifying years married to a dangerous narcissist who wanted to destroy her, not just mentally and physically, but financially as well. Despite her challenges, she leveraged her 40-year career in finance to gain a holistic understanding of the importance of financial wellness and recovery process. Her unique approach integrates psychological resilience, emotional intelligence, and practical financial strategies to create a comprehensive framework for personal transformation. Melissa, welcome back to the show. It's my pleasure to have you back.
I appreciate it. Thanks. It's good to be back.
Today's topic I want to unpack with you is women empowerment and finance. Let's start with what led you as a woman to go into the finance sector?
Oh, gosh. I actually started, I'm going to give my age away, in 1981. I was in college and I was given the opportunity to work part-time for a mortgage company. So I grabbed that opportunity and I originally wanted to be a veterinarian, but I quickly changed my focus to finance because I was so intrigued by it. So I continued working for this company part-time until I graduated, and then they transferred me in 1986 to Atlanta. And that is where I started actually climbing the corporate ladder to get where I was. And it was managing the entire state of Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, in our mortgage and finance division. So I had a deep understanding of finances from an early age. And that's why, when I finally was given an early retirement, which was December of 2021, kind of came out of the blue, but our company merged with another company and 200 of us were given this dynamite severance package. So I grabbed it, but I didn't know what I wanted to do after that because I couldn't really retire. So that's when we started creating programs to help people that have been through the same type of abuse that myself and my husband had been through, because it is devastating. I mean, devastating. And the financial piece of it is what holds most victims back, because you can't do anything without money. And so if you are the one not having access to money, and you don't know how to budget, you don't know how to manage, when you finally get out of the relationship, the narcissistic or domestic violence relationship, I have so many clients that have no idea what to do. They don't know about credit scores. They don't know how to budget. They don't know how to create an emergency fund. So because of that, because of so many, and in fact, so many women that I've done seminars with while I was still in the financial industry, it's so devastating. And they are so anxious to learn things about, well, how do I do it? How do I understand how to do it? How do I know how to, rebuild my credit? How do I know how to start a retirement fund? So all of these things.
Really quick, Melissa, I just want to give reference to the listeners. If you want to, she just referenced her abuse, and she was on this podcast, and she and her husband shared a wonderful story, episode 393. Go back there and listen to that. I just want to reference it while we're on there. Go ahead, Melissa.
Yes. And I know from my own experience, my ex opened accounts in my name that I didn't know about. So there was identity theft, there was credit fraud. He charged credit cards to the max on things that I had no idea. And they're very slick about it because he made the minimum payments on all these fraudulent credit cards up until the divorce. And then he stopped making the payments. And because he drug our divorce on for so long, I had to make these payments because I was in the financial industry, because I worked for a well-known financial corporation. I couldn't default on these debts. So it was draining me financially. It was something that I was constantly, he was attacking me from behind. So I didn't know things were coming. So I was always reacting. And when you react to something, you're scrambling to fix it, to repair it, to cope with it. So what I did when I retired and we opened our company, Victim to Warrior, I created a financial series. And this financial series is a 6-part video series with a 47-page workbook. And it's for anyone that has been through a financial hardship, whether it be from abuse, economic, a job loss, illness, anything that destroys someone financially. This course would be something that would be good for them because it walks you through every piece of it, how to create an emergency fund in case you need to leave, but you haven't been able to. And then it goes into protecting your credit, freezing your credit, getting your credit repaired so your credit score can increase, because the higher your credit score, the more likely you are to get lower interest rates, a better loan on a car, maybe a better place to live, maybe a better job. The world kind of revolves around credit scores, and so many people don't understand what a credit score is, how it's made up. So the course goes into a lot of details about why a credit score is so important. It also goes into how do you determine if you are a victim of identity theft, or how do you dispute debts that were open in your name fraudulently. And I found so many people that they're like, I don't want to know what's on my credit report. I'm like, not knowing is not going to fix it. If there are things on your credit report that need to be handled and disputed, or a settlement or some type of workout arrangement with the creditor, if you are ignoring it, it's just going to get worse. Your credit score is going to continue to plummet, and you have to start somewhere. So trying to pretend like there's nothing wrong as long as you don't see it, that's like getting a disease and not taking the medicine. It's just going to get worse. So I always tell people, get a copy of your free credit report. Everybody is entitled to one free credit report a year. So you can get your credit report, you can look at it. And if there are things on there that aren't yours, that somebody opened in your name, you're a victim of identity theft, or it's just credit that maybe you yourself have ignored, you at least have a clear picture of what is on there. And then the series tells you what to do in order to dispute, correct, freeze, rebuild. And it also goes into the financial aspect of, saving for retirement. There's so many people living paycheck to paycheck, but if you budget correctly and you are paying off debt that you need to, there's a video in there on how to pay off debt the quickest, where you actually can have some, rewards of paying off debt. Paying off debt and budgeting is daunting. So that's why the workbook comes into play, because it walks people through it. And it's a workbook they can use for the rest of their life. Everything about it is things that you can carry on, not only when you're rebuilding, but when you're strategizing, when you're investing, all of that. So that's what our 6-part financial series is all about.
You touched a little bit on retirement, and I was watching a video the other day, Melissa, and the video was on a 41-year-old woman. I posted actually a reaction video to this on my Instagram, and it was a 41-year-old lady, and she was saying how she is 41 years old. She's a single mother. She has $100,000 in school loans, school debt, and she has $0 saved for retirement. She has no plan. She's $14,000 in credit card. She has she's been on food stamps, and she's working 10-hour days, or she's just working. And at the end of the video, she says, "I'm gonna die in her cubicle." She said, "I'm gonna die in my cubicle working." And I looked at that, and I made a reaction video, and I thought to myself, I said, man, this is the life of so many Americans that are in this situation with this idea that we've been sold, that we have to we tell young people get into debt when they don't even know who they are yet. Now this lady's 41. She's $100,000 in debt. She can't even get out. She's close to retirement. 20 years will go like this. We both know that. 20 years will go, I'm done. we have a retirement crisis amongst the many other crises we have in this country. For instance, when I like to model success, Melissa. So I like to look at people that are doing well, people that are doing what I want, and then I like to get in their world and ask them, how did you do that? And then I like to bring it into my world and then rinse and repeat it. And what I've done is when I look at people that have believed and bought into the idea of 401k and Social Security and all of this, I've noticed that the majority of people that have bought into that, it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. This is what we've been told, that this is the way. What advice would you give, for instance, to that lady that might be listening to us?
Well, it makes it very daunting, like I said, because it takes money in order to pay off debt, in order to work out a budget. The one thing that I know when I was going through my career, the reason I bought into the 401k is because my company matched it. I mean, it was like free money. I mean, I put in 6%, they put in 6%. It was an incredible benefit package. If you're working someplace that doesn't offer that, it makes it a little more challenging to prepare for retirement. In her case, working 10 hours a day, and being 14,000 in debt,
Credit card debt plus 100,000 in student.
Yeah,
that's just scary. That's just and a single mother on top.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully she's applied for deferment or financial hardship on that student loan, so she's not having to make payments on it right now. And she's in a situation where they would approve that. So getting the student loan deferred because of the financial hardship, it allows you time to breathe. You don't have to pay that off right now. You can focus on the now. So being able to create a budget, and I know people hate that. People hate budgets, but you absolutely can't. You can't save. You can't pay off debt. You can't do anything without a budget. This was the little simple thing that I did. I did it with my son. I did it with literally thousands of women in empowerment seminars that I did. I told them to get a shoebox, just a shoebox, cut a little hole in it. And then for 1 month, every single dime you spend, whether it's a debit, whether it's cash, whether it's credit card, put it in the box. Put the receipt in the box. I mean, every single dime. You have to account for it. So put it in the box, you spend it, put it in the box. At the end of 30 days, when you take that lid off and you dump all those receipts out, every single penny, and you start adding them up, you would be surprised some of the things that you don't need, that you really don't need as a necessity. You don't need to buy coffee out. You can make coffee from home. You don't need to buy lunch out. You can bring your lunch. There's so many things that people think, well, that was only $7. This is only $6. It adds up. And once you go through all of the receipts, and in my financial series, you actually can document them. What is it that is not a financial necessity? What is it that you spent money on, regardless of how much it is, that you could actually do without because it's not a necessity? It's a want. It's not a need. So when you start looking at things, even if it's $50, guess what? $50 can go toward either an emergency savings account or to pay off a debt or to start paying off a debt. People get so discouraged because, like I said, it seems impossible. But if you take little steps like that, you can find money that you really don't need to be spending. Cable, I mean, my gosh, if you look at people's cable bills and internet bills, it's outrageous. And so is cell phone service, because they add on so many things that we don't need. And one of the things I find is they trick you with subscriptions. So you might want to watch a TV series and they're like 7-day trial, $7.99. But then you forget to cancel in 7 days. So then they charge you for it. And then all of a sudden the next month they charge you again. So subscriptions is definitely a place for people to look. And I mean, on your phone, you can look in your settings. You can go to settings, subscriptions, and see what you have active that you could cancel. There were so many things that I had, like annual memberships to a fitness app or a yoga app. I forgot about them. And then all of a sudden, 12 months went by and they charged me the $49.99. It was $50 that I didn't need to spend. I didn't need that app. So canceling those subscriptions that you don't need, and there are so many that we have that we don't need, is another way to get money that you could use for other things. And one of the things that I learned when I was trying to dig my way out of debt, because my ex charged so much in my name, withdrew money from our accounts, and I was really, really struggling. I had 2 house payments. I couldn't sell one because he put a lien against it. So it was daunting. I mean, I was literally living paycheck to paycheck. But taking those small little steps, and one of the things that was instilled in me is pay yourself first. And I know people think, well, pay yourself first. Yes, when you pay yourself first, and it might be the $20, opening up an emergency account, opening up a savings account if your credit is, not the best, you can go to the bank and open up a savings account. You don't need a checking account, because sometimes checking accounts, they want to check your credit score. And if it's too low, they're afraid you're going to bounce checks. A savings account, you don't bounce anything, but don't get a debit card for it. Just if you can put $20, $10 out of your monthly budget into that account, it's going to add up. It's going to start, because you're going to forget about it. And if you have a paycheck that's automatically going into a checking account, have that paycheck transfer $20 or $30, whatever you can afford, into that savings account that you don't have ready access for. So it's out of sight, out of mind. And then the rest of the money is what you will plan your budget with, getting rid of unnecessary spending and starting to create a plan. If you have a lot of credit card debt and it's daunting and there's no way you're going to be able to pay, the interest rates are so high, they're like 30%, and the late charge, they're ridiculous. It's a crime. Those type of debts, it may be better for somebody to call the creditor and work out a settlement or some type of deferment. Creditors would rather get something than nothing. And it might be that they have to work out settlements, and it does ding your credit. It does. But credit dings, they don't last forever. They don't negatively affect your credit forever. You can get past it a year or 2 years. It's not affecting your credit anymore. But it might be something that will let you breathe right now. And then, worst case scenario is a bankruptcy. I know people are like, oh my God, but if it's so daunting and it's so impossible and you can't pay it anyway, going to see a bankruptcy attorney, there could be something that you can do on a Chapter 13. That's a repayment plan. They actually take your debt, reduce the payment, you make one payment, and your debts are paid off over a series of 5 years. But it's the interest rates don't accumulate. The creditors can't add more, interest to the balances. It might be a way to pay off things and then get out of debt. And then when you're out of that, you're out of debt. You can start rebuilding your credit from there. So those are things, that little pieces of advice that might help.
Do you believe that there's a disparity in financial education for women and men?
I would, I would have to probably say yes. Men might not like that answer, but I know in the financial sector, most of the top executives are men. They make more money, and I'm not bitter because they paid me well. I got a great severance, but I do know that most of the women in our company worked extremely hard and had more responsibilities, but our pay wasn't equal. So I do think they have an advantage in that they make more money. They make more money, even if the positions are pretty much the same. For whatever reason, I think society thinks that they can pay women less. And it's kind of It's sad. It really is. So I do think because they have more money, they have more opportunities to save it, to invest it, to live a better life or whatever, than women, you know? I mean, it's a sad truth.
Would you say that's one of the biggest challenges women face in the finance industry today?
I would, yes, because there are a lot of women in the finance industry, but there's so many more men, and the men are they're the higher executives. They are, generally speaking, there are women that are the presidents of the bank. I'm not going to take that away from anyone who has worked incredibly hard to get where they are, but the statistics and the percentage is higher for men to be in the executive positions over women.
So you were an executive in the financial industry, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What was that like for you? Did you experience that yourself? Because we're seeing that women are now graduating or higher educated. The younger women. Women have higher education than men nowadays in our country, and a lot of these, of course, higher education oftentimes equals higher pay. We're seeing an imbalance in some areas now where women are highly better educated than some of the young guys coming out, and they're making more money. What was that experience like for you while you was in that role, and how did you manage that?
I was bitter in some parts of my career when, especially during the merger of our two companies, where I felt lesser quality men were put over more experienced, but higher quality females. And we were training them. We were training them on how to do their job when they were probably making twice as much as we were. So it's hard not to be bitter at the time. Now, because I was in the business a long time ago and worked my way up, I had a lot of opportunities and I was granted a lot of things, but I worked extremely hard, 60, 70 hours a week. I mean, to my poor detriment. I mean, he literally grew up as an only child with a single parent that worked, 1,000,000 hours a week. And I regret that. I really do. So I would say in today's environment, women they're more bold. They really are. I mean, if you feel that there's a disparage or you feel that you're being discriminated, I would go to HR. I really would. Before, women were afraid because of retaliation. But the HR departments, I have found, unless it's a small family-owned business where they make the rules, in a regular business, HR is separate. It's like the executives don't manage HR. They basically follow federal laws regard to discrimination and income disparages between men and women in the same role. So if someone feels that is happening to them, I would go to HR. HR has to investigate it. HR has to determine, is that the case? Because that is a form of discrimination if you are paying a man higher than a woman in the same position. So nowadays, I think it's easier for women to do it and not fear retaliation. Whereas, many years back, most women would be too afraid. You didn't want to lose your job. You didn't want your boss to get upset with you. You didn't want now to be demoted because you complained. So there were things back then that I don't think we really had the luxury of being comfortable doing as I think women today do. So I definitely, if you feel that's a issue, at least bring it to HR. Everything's anonymous. They'll do their investigation anonymously. So it's not like, oh my God, you did that. You went behind my back. The investigation is anonymous. And then they'll make a determination as to what's fair and then let that employee know.
What would you say we can do to close the gender gap as it pertains to financial literacy and income inequality? I was reading an article not too long ago about this, and there is some some disparities in male and female pay. And it was an interesting article. There's an interesting perspective as it was talking about, you just mentioned from a female's perspective, a woman's perspective, how you worked so hard, 60, 70 hours, single mom, and to you regret some of that. And for women, and it is what it is. You have that maternal instinct. That I think that was the perspective, and I think that's where they were going with it. That with men, we don't tend to have that. We tend to, not that we don't have that. We're just built different. We're just different. It just is what it is. We're just different. Our instinct is to provide and protect. The woman's has a maternal instinct, is to nurture their babies, and to. My wife still does that with our grown kids, Melissa. So. Right?
I still talk to my kid every day. He's 32.
like stop,
Yes.
So it's just the way we are made. It's just an interesting observation that the article is just a different perspective. But I'd like to get your perspective on it. What do you think can be done to kind of close that gap?
Well, I can speak for many of my clients who, when they got married, they decided to take the step back because the husband made more than they did. So they became, the stay-at-home mom, and they, had the children and raised the children and, brought them to all their events. And they literally did a 40 or 50 hour week job for nothing, for zero money. And so when they're trying to get out of abusive relationships where the husband controlled everything and they were the stay-at-home mom, it's very difficult for them to get a job. It's very difficult for them to even know what to do with money. So research and education, if you're going to be a stay-at-home mom, then I would strongly suggest that you're not blocked out of the financial part of it. If you are being blocked out, that is financial abuse. Knowing what your spouse or partner or husband or wife is doing, and being educated. So many people just put the blinders on and says, well, they're handling the finance. They're handling everything, that needs to be done financially. I'm going to do everything with the kids. Being blind, and I don't mean this as a negative, but being ignorant to the financial sector, it sets you back so far. When and if you want to get a divorce because of abuse, you literally have no clue what's going on. And it definitely puts them behind the eight ball, if you will. As far as women who want to have kids later in life, let's say they want that career, they want that. I mean, I waited till I was 27. A lot of women are waiting till they're 30, 35. It is what it is. So starting out with a financial position at a company and being able to, I would say, anything that you can do with your company that talks about financial awareness, financial empowerment, education, even though it sounds boring, do it, take it. Knowledge is everything, as we know, but understanding how to set yourself up if you are young and you are going to start your career before children or marriage or whatever, knowledge in the financial sector is huge, because at least you are aware of how to invest, how to save, whether or not your company has a 401k, what's the matching, any deferred income you could, put into something that is going to be taxed later. All of these things, I think people go through their life and their jobs early on, like almost in a robotic stage. They don't actually look at finances and the future the way they should. And the younger you are, the better it is to do that. Like the 41-year-old woman, now she's like having to start from scratch, whereas a 21-year-old, 22-year-old, rather than being reckless, being educated, won't be in that position when they get to that age. It's all about, not living in the now, but thinking, okay, I'm going to live somewhat in the now, but I have to think about how I'm going to live in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, etc.
Challenges, like going to that woman, the 41-year-old woman, and the 21-year-old version of that woman you mentioned a moment ago, is that the 21-year-old version doesn't have the resources and the education to get the information. Like, we have it readily available nowadays, right? But we are taught that you have to go to school, and we think that the traditional education is going to give us everything we need to succeed in life. And that is so far from the truth. Far from the truth. They teach you nothing about money. They teach you nothing about how money works, how entrepreneurship works, how to invest money, how to get returns on your money. They teach you nothing about that. And then you
how to balance your checkbook. They don't even teach you that. It's really sad.
You wind up being 41 and you wind up just, and this is kind of where I was going with it, Melissa. You wind up being 41 years old and you wind up buying into what we were told. You just get your 401k and you do your thing. You contribute to that and Social Security, and that's going to take care of you when you're old. And a lot of people are figuring out that didn't work, or that they just relied on that information that's being told to the masses and being sold to the masses.
Like autopilot, yes.
Correct. And not going out and listening to a podcast like this, listening to someone like you, going out and getting the right information, figuring out, okay, how can I get better returns? That's the question I always grappled with. Like, how does someone own a $2 million house and owns their time? Like, I always wanted to know that. I'm taught you got to go work, and how do you avoid that, right? And it's when you ask those kind of questions, it starts to lead you to get the information, which when you knock, the door opens. When you seek, you find. And when you ask, you shall receive. And you start to find and attract that information. Your brain starts to find it. Yet most people don't do that, Melissa. So, what advice are you giving to a young woman? She's grappling with the movement of, I'm an independent woman and I have to go get my career and I got to go get the money and I want to go do and be me. And at the same time, she's struggling internally with, that sounds great. And this is what society is telling me to do. But man, I also have this maternal thing that I want to have a family and I want to be a mom and I want to have 4 kids. And she's fighting internally. She's having that internal battle.
It's actually a personal decision as to whether you want to work after you have children. When I was working and had a small child, it was frowned on. I mean, it was in the place I lived, because all of the women there were like tennis moms. I mean, their husbands worked and, their kids came home after school. So it was one of those things that I felt really bad about, but it's like, what am I supposed to do? I have to work. Somebody's got to keep the lights on. Somebody's got to pay, for the food. But it was literally frowned on that I was a working mom with a small child. And so I would say today, you can have both. You can have a career and you can have a child. And I hate to say this, but, COVID allowed this, Zoom, remote jobs, things like that. And that's when I talk to people about, I can't go into the office every day. There's so many remote jobs. There really are good jobs. So if you want to have both, if you want to have a career and also be a mom, the deciding factor is when you have your child, how do you feel about going back to work? Because someone else is going to be taking care of them while you are at work. So it's one of those struggles. I have I had many, many, many employees that work for me, and I had some moms, pregnant, leave on maternity leave. I'm coming back. I love my job. I would never give it up. And then 2 days before the 12 weeks were up, they'd call me and go, I can't leave. I can't do it. I'm staying home with the kid. And I respect that because.
Amen at them.
Yeah.
Maternal instinct is powerful. Yeah.
It is. And then I have others that don't have the luxury of doing that. They have to come back. They had to come back to work. And so it makes it a personal decision and also a practical decision. If you want both, can you afford to have both? And are you willing to let someone trustworthy be a part of your child's life? Because they will be with that child, a third or more of the time than you will be, because you're going to be working. So it is definitely one of these deciding factors. But I will say, if you are an independent woman and you want both, don't feel guilty. Don't feel guilty that you want a career, because you want a better life for your family and a better life for you and a better future for you. It also gives you more independence. It really does, than giving it up. But like I said, it's a personal decision. It depends on your home life. If you've got a great marriage and a trustworthy husband or a trustworthy wife, then you may want to stay home. You may want to stay home and invest all that time with your child, because those young ages, that's when they're little sponges. That's when they're absorbing things. And mothers want to be part of that if possible. If it's not possible, then balancing that, I would recommend definitely trying to be part of the child's life as much as you can, going to the school events, using your vacation for that type of thing, so you can actually balance out the work life time frame, and you're not feeling so guilty about working like I did, work all those hours. We just didn't have those opportunities back then. But now they do. I mean, a lot of places have daycare at the work facility. So checking out things like that, looking for jobs that would enhance your work-life balance, depending on what that is, that's what I would recommend. Don't just think you're put on this path and you have to stay on this path and there's no other choices for you. Looking for the other choices takes time, but being on autopilot, it's almost like somebody else is running your life for you. So
yes, being intentional. I love that you said that. And is there anything that you didn't share that you should have shared that would bring a tremendous amount of value to the audience and myself?
One of the things that I would like to say is it's never too late. It's never too daunting. It's never too, you're never in too deep to dig your way out, but you have to be intentional. You have to be very, very intentional with it. So many people just think it's hopeless and they're like, I'm just going to drudge through life. That is a choice that you're making. It's not the choice you have to make. So thinking a mindset of it is never too late, no matter how old, you can make a difference in your life. You can make it better. But education, knowledge, purpose, drive, all takes part of it. And it lets you be in charge of your life path rather than somebody else. So I would say no matter how bad it is, don't give up. Don't think it's impossible, because it is possible.
Yeah, go and ask different set of questions. Go and get educated. Ask us a different set of questions. It doesn't have to be where you are, and regardless of what the situation is. You might be in a bad place, but people have gotten out of bad places in history. That means if someone has done it, you can. You just need to find the right information and figure out how to get out of it. Start by asking questions. And if you're listening to this podcast, then you're in the right place. You started by even getting the information. So if people wanted to connect with you and they wanted to get your video series on finances that you talked about with the workbook, where can they find that? How do they connect with you, Melissa? Where can they connect with you, my dear?
Our website, which is www.v2w.com, has all of our resources. It has personalized support. If they need a personalized meeting with me or a session where they can actually tell me their issue and we can work together to create options and solutions that work for them, or they can click on the financial series. They can click on webinars. We have a lot of we have free master classes that people can actually take and learn from. So a lot of our resources, well, actually all of our resources are on our website, and they're very explicit. So if they just click on it, whatever place they are, they can actually find the resources that we offer.
And that's the V2, the number 2, V2W.com.
Yes.
The V2W.com. Make sure you guys connect with her and give them your Instagram handle. And you guys are doing some really good work. Are you and your husband, which I had you guys, had both of you on the podcast here, episode 393. Guys, check that out if you like Melissa and what she's saying here. I think you should definitely go back and listen to that episode. Amazing. She's got an amazing story, her and her husband. Go check that out. So where would you give us your Instagram handle, or is all that on your website as well, your TikTok and Instagram? You guys are doing some really cool stuff on your social media.
Yes. All of our channels are V2W, victim to warrior spelled out. So V, number 2W, and then the word victim, TO, warrior. And that's our handle on everything. And it represents, transformation, going from a reactive victim to a proactive warrior. And I'll tell you, it's possible no matter how bad of a situation that you're in. I know personally.
Outstanding. Well, thank you so much for being such a great guest, my dear. Thank you for coming back again. I really appreciate that. And we'll see you soon, hon. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.